Right, 48.2 degrees in Adelaide yesterday while Hobart only hit 19. Is your area about to cop the most dangerous weather combination we have seen this summer? Currently, the Bureau of Meteorology has severe weather warnings active across 4 states affecting over 12 million Australians. I am breaking down exactly when this system hits your city, which locations face the biggest threat, and the one detail the models are still arguing about that could change everything. Chuck your location in the comments right now because tomorrow I'll be giving personalised forecasts for your specific area. Sydney, rain arrives Thursday evening around 7 p.m, heaviest overnight, clearing Friday morning. Melbourne, you are looking at a cooler change Wednesday arvo, but the real story is what follows on Friday. Brisbane and the Gold Coast, scattered storms Wednesday afternoon, some potentially severe. Perth, dry and hot through the week, 41 degrees Thursday. Adelaide, that southerly change hits late Wednesday, dropping temps by 15 degrees in 2 hours. Hobart, mostly fine, low 20s all week. Darwin, typical wet season pattern, afternoon storms daily. Canberra, hot and dry until Friday's change. Now, here is the thing. We've got 3 separate weather systems converging across the country right now. And depending on which model you trust, this week plays out very differently for southeastern Australia. Let me walk you through what's actually happening because the uncertainty around one of these systems is pretty significant, and I'll tell you exactly when we'll know more. Starting up north, the monsoon trough is sitting right across the top end and the Gulf country. Darwin, Katherine and Nullarbor, you are in the thick of it. We are talking afternoon storms developing most days this week, some heavy, some severe, typical wet season stuff, but the rainfall totals are adding up. Darwin's already seen 230 millimetres since Saturday, and we could easily see another 100 to 150 this week. The models reckon this pattern continues through at least the weekend. Townsville, Cairns and up around Cooktown, you are on the edge of this activity. Hit and miss storms, but when they fire up, they'll be intense. For you lot in central Queensland, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Rockhampton, Mackay, even down to Bundaberg, we're re-seeing this unstable air mass sitting overhead. Access is showing isolated severe thunderstorms Wednesday and Thursday, mainly inland but potentially drifting to the coast. The European Model S a bit less aggressive, suggesting more scattered activity. This difference matters because if access is right, we could see damaging winds and large hail across the Wide Bay and Burnett districts. Tomorrow morning's model runs should give us better clarity. Southeast Queensland, now this is where it gets interesting. Brisbane, Logan, Ipswich, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, you've already copped some wild storms the last couple of days. Trees down, power outages, the whole lot. The question is whether we get round 3. Current thinking says yes, but the timing has shifted. Looking like Wednesday afternoon into evening now rather than Tuesday. Toowoomba and the Darling Downs, you're in the firing line too. These storms could be severe. We're talking wind gusts to 80 or 90 kilometres per hour, heavy rain, frequent lightning. The thing to watch is the wind shear, which is looking pretty conducive for supercells. I'll have more detail tomorrow once we see how today's atmosphere recovers. Northern New South Wales, you're not missing out. Lismore, Casino, Grafton, Byron Bay, scattered storms Wednesday and Thursday. Some could be severe, particularly inland. The coastal strip might stay a bit more settled thanks to the sea breeze, but Don T, count on it. Coffs Harbour and Port Macquarie, you're in that transition zone, could go either way. Sydney and surrounds, Newcastle, Wollongong, the Central Coast, here is your week. Hot and humid through Wednesday, tops around 32 to 34 degrees with that sticky northeasterly flow, not ideal. Thursday evening, here when it changes, we've got this trough moving through, bringing showers and storms, some potentially heavy. The real change comes behind it Friday, southwesterly winds dropping temps back to the mid-20s. The uncertainty I mentioned earlier, it's about how far north this change pushes and how quickly. GFS has it moving faster than access, which means different timing for the rain and the cool relief. Western Sydney, Penrith, Campbelltown, you will feel the heat most Wednesday and Thursday before the change. Hang on, let me clarify that because the fire danger angle is critical here. Wednesday across the Greater Sydney region, we're re-looking at very high to severe fire danger ratings. Hot, dry, westerly winds ahead of the change, low humidity, and we've had all this dry lightning from recent storms. The trough brings moisture, which helps, but until it arrives, we need to be careful. Total fire ban likely for several areas. This applies to you folks out around the Blue Mountains, Hawkesbury, Southern Highlands too. Actually, I should be more specific about that change because the impacts vary significantly. The Hunter Valley, you'll see the change first, probably late Thursday. Conditions ease overnight. Sydney Metro, Change arrives around 2 to 4 a.m. Friday. Illawarra, you might not see it until Friday morning. This timing matters for planning. Let me check that again. Yeah, the latest access run is showing the change arriving Sydney around 3 a.m. Friday, but the 12-hour ensemble spread has it anywhere from midnight to 6 a.m, so there's still a bit of uncertainty around the exact timing. We'll have a better idea tomorrow. Canberra and the ACT, you are dealing with extreme heat Wednesday and Thursday. 38 degrees Wednesday, could crack 40 on Thursday depending on how that northwesterly wind develops. The change Friday brings relief, dropping you back to 28 or so, with showers possible. Queanbeyan, Goulburn, Yass, similar story. Victoria, right, this is pretty unusual for late January. Melbourne, you got that week change Wednesday, drops you from 34 to maybe 28, but it is short-lived. Thursday, you'll back up to 32 before the proper southerly change Friday. When it hits and it'll be around lunchtime, temps will crash. We're re-talking from low 30s to high teens in a couple of hours. Classic southerly buster pattern, just unusual to see one this strong this late in summer. Geelong, Ballarat, Bendigo, Shepparton, you all get the same treatment, just slightly different timing. Now, here's the thing that got me concerned. The fire situation across Victoria is serious. With the heat Wednesday and Thursday, plus strong northerly winds, we're re-looking at catastrophic fire danger in several districts. The Mallee, Wimmera, Northern Country, it's all high risk. The change Friday helps enormously, bringing cooler, moister air, but until it arrives, conditions are about as bad as they get. Anyone in rural Victoria needs to have their fire plan sorted. I am not mucking around here. This is genuinely dangerous. For you lot down in Gippsland, Sale, Bairnsdale, Warragul, you are slightly more sheltered from the extreme heat, but you'll still see mid to high 30s Wednesday and Thursday. The storms that develop ahead of Friday's change could be severe. Heavy rain, strong winds, possibly hail. Tasmania, you've got the best run of weather in the country this week. Hobart, Launceston, Devonport, Burnie, we're re-talking low to mid-20s, partly cloudy, isolated showers. You might get some of that Friday change as strengthened southwesterlies, but nothing dramatic. The West Coast, Queenstown, Strahan, a bit wetter as usual, but still pleasant. South Australia, Adelaide, this is your week in detail. Hot and dry through Wednesday. That 41 I mentioned for Thursday looks locked in now. Northerly winds, low humidity, very high to extreme fire danger. The change Wednesday evening is crucial. It arrives around 6 to 7 p.m. and when it does, temps will drop from the low 40s to mid-20s within an hour or two. The southerly will be strong, gusts to 70 kilometres per hour possible. Mount Gambier, you will see the change earlier around 3 p.m. The southeast generally gets it before Adelaide Metro. The mid-north, Port Pirie, Port Augusta, Whyalla, you are dealing with even hotter conditions. 43 to 45 degrees Wednesday and Thursday. This is body temperature plus 8 degrees, makes it over 7 times harder for your body to cool itself compared to 40 degrees. Anyone working outdoors needs to seriously reconsider their plans. The change when it arrives brings massive relief, but until then it's dangerous. York Peninsula, Eyre Peninsula, similar extreme heat. Ceduna, Streaky Bay, Tumby Bay, all looking at low to mid-40s. The agricultural impacts here are significant too, with crops already stressed from the heat. Western Australia, Perth, URE in a different pattern entirely. Stable high-pressure system keeping you hot and dry all week. 38 Tuesday, 41 Wednesday and Thursday, back to 37 Friday. The Fremantle Dr. Seabreeze will provide some afternoon relief, but it's still a hot week, minimal rain chance. Bunbury in the southwest, couple degrees cooler, but same story. Up in the northwest, Broome, Port Hedland, Karratha, you are in the monsoon fringe. Isolated storms possible, mainly inland, coastal areas staying drier. The heat's not as intense thanks to the marine influence, but humidity high. Feels like temperatures in the low 40s across the Pilbara. The interior, Kalgoorlie, Leonora, you are looking at mid to high 40s all week. Brutal conditions, Alice Springs in the Northern Territory, similar story, 43 to 45 most days. There's one location that could cop something unexpected, and it is actually the Bight country in Western South Australia. The models are hinting at a weak trough developing there late week, which could trigger storms. Ceduna, Nullarbor Plain, even across into the Western Victorian Mallee. If this develops, it'll bring welcome rain, but also the risk of dry lightning starting fires. The uncertainty here is high. We'll know more tomorrow. If there is one thing to remember from this forecast, it is that Friday's change is the big story for southeastern Australia. It is the difference between dangerous heat and fire conditions and relief. The timing varies by location, so check back tomorrow for updates specific to your area. The models are still showing some differences around the weekend. Access suggests another system moving through Sunday, bringing rain to South Australia and Victoria. The European model S less convinced, keeping it drier. This 100-kilometre difference in the trough position changes everything for Adelaide and Melbourne. Tomorrow morning S runs should sort this out. Around the 10-minute mark here, if you haven't already, chuck your location in the comments. Tomorrow I'll be going through and giving more detailed forecasts for specific towns and suburbs. I genuinely want to help you plan your week. Now, about those coastal waters, because I know a lot of you are keen to get out fishing or just hit the beach. The East Coast generally sees increasing swells mid to late week as that trough approaches. Sydney, Newcastle, you are looking at 2 to 3 metre seas Wednesday, building to 3 to 4 Thursday. Not ideal for small boats. The surf will be solid though, 3 to 5 foot faces, offshore early then switching onshore with the change. Southeast Queensland coast, similar building pattern. Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, 2 to 3 metres Wednesday and Thursday. The storms could make things messy too. North Queensland, Cairns to Townsville, typical wet season conditions, 1 to 2 metres higher in storms. Southern coastline, the Friday change brings big southwesterly swells. Victoria and South Australia, 4 to 6 metre seas Friday into Saturday, not a weekend for heading offshore. Tasmania, East Coast will see this too, 3 to 5 metres. Western Australia, Perth coast stays relatively calm, 1 to 2 metres, light winds. The northwest, Broome to Exmouth, isolated thunderstorm activity could stir things up, but generally manageable. Let me talk about the longer term pattern because there's something developing that we need to watch. The models are indicating a potential tropical low forming in the Coral Sea next week. Now, it's way too early to say whether this develops into anything significant, but it is something to monitor. The sea surface temperatures are certainly warm enough, 30 to 31 degrees. Whether it has the atmospheric support to intensify, that is the question. I'll be tracking this closely and we'll have updates through the week. The thing is, in that transition period from mid to late summer, where the monsoonal flow weakens and southern high pressure systems strengthen. This makes the steering patterns more important and increases the chance of tropical systems affecting the east coast. Anyone from Cairns down to southeast Queensland should keep an eye on developments. Yeah, look, I know this isn't ideal for people in South Australia and Victoria dealing with the extreme heat and fire danger. It is a rough trot. But the change is coming, just need to get through the next 48 hours safely. Looking at the broader national picture, we've got this strong contrast, right? The north in full wet season mode, the east dealing with humidity and storms, the south facing extreme heat and fire conditions, and the west in a stable hot pattern. It's pretty unusual to see such distinct zones, but that is what happens when you've got these competing systems. Actually, let me clarify something about the storm risk for Wednesday across Queensland and New South Wales. The atmospheric setup favours supercell development, particularly in that zone from the Darling Downs across to the northern rivers. When I say supercell, I mean organised rotating storms capable of producing giant hail, damaging winds over 125 kilometres per hour, and intense rainfall rates. The last couple of days showed us what these systems can do. Trees ripped out of the ground, flash flooding. Wednesday's setup could be similar or worse. The wind shear, which is the change in wind speed and direction with height, is forecast to be very strong. Combined with the instability, the heat and moisture, it is a recipe for severe weather. Not every storm will be severe, but the ones that get going will be intense. For the wheat and grain growers in South Australia, Victoria and southern New South Wales, this heat is absolutely punishing for crops. Combined with the dry conditions, yields are going to take a hit. The change Friday brings cooler temps but not much rain for most areas. The livestock industry across the south is struggling too. 45-degree days are incredibly stressful for cattle and sheep. Farmers will be working overtime to ensure stock have access to water and shade. Check back tomorrow because the 12-hour model update tonight will give us much better clarity on that Friday trough timing, the weekend system for South Australia and Victoria, and the developing situation in the Coral Sea. Right, wrapping up, here's what you need to know. Extreme heat and catastrophic fire danger for southern Australia Wednesday and Thursday. Major relief Friday with that southerly change. Southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales, severe storm risk Wednesday. Monitor warnings closely. Northern Australia, continuing wet season storms, heavy falls possible. Western Australia, stable hot pattern continues. The uncertainty around exact timing of Friday's change means you need to stay updated. And tomorrow I'll have refined timings. If you've got elderly neighbours, check on them during this heat. If you've got pets, make sure they've got shade and water. This is serious stuff. For those of you who've been asking about long-range forecasts, I'll be doing a La Niña El Niño update early next week, looking at what February and March might bring. There are some interesting signals in the Indian Ocean dipole as well that could influence our autumn pattern. One more thing, the pronunciation. I know I sometimes mangle some of the smaller town names. If I butchered yours, sorry mate, leave a comment and set me straight. Always trying to improve. Tomorrow's forecast will be up at the usual time, and I'll have specific updates for the areas most impacted by Wednesday-S storms and Thursday-S heat. I'll also have more on that potential tropical development. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Appreciate you all watching and engaging. Your comments and feedback genuinely help me make these forecasts better and more relevant to what you need. Whether you're in the city or out in the bush, stay safe, look after each other, and I'll see you